Welcome to week 2 of class. I'm excited that you guys are here and still with me. This week is, to me, I think it's exciting, not just because it's grammar, because I know everybody, they start getting stomach aches when you say that word, but with the perspective of which we are looking at grammar and the purpose of grammar. I've read your introductions, I've seen your assessments, and I also see that there's this need of wanting to communicate better, communicate more effectively. And everything that we do in writing and the rhetoric that and orally speaking to people, it all really starts here, and how you want to be viewed as an academic and later on as a professional. Last week we talked about that because I really wanted you to marinate on those ideas of what is it that you want people to see in you. When you walk into a room, whatever your profession is, how do you want to be viewed? And then I piggybacked that with, does your writing reflect how you want to be viewed as an academic or as a professional? And so that's where these two worlds, rather than it being grammar skill and then we're going to write over here and we're going to read over here, it really all melds together in this one cohesive, or these cohesive cogs and parts that they're all necessary for the one big end result of how you're communicating not only your research, but things that you are creating. It could be a proposal, it could be a creative writing piece. Whatever it is that you're creating is very purposeful. Everything that you say is purposeful. It needs to be purposeful because it represents how you want to be viewed. Grammar is a foundation piece. Every word has a job and has a purpose. Now, I do want to preface this before I get into just one so I don't get in trouble, because this is going on YouTube. The grammar curriculum that I have utilized is Surely English. It's one of the best curriculums for grammar that I've ever taught. It's logical. It makes sense. It puts grammar in a perspective of really being used in the writing process. So before we get into, or before you do your homework and all that, I hope that you have had an opportunity to read through the chapters, look through them, and the resources that I've created for you guys. I've been doing this a long time, and I was very specific with how I created that, the examples, and just really explaining not just the skill, but why the skill is important. And so hopefully before you start your homework this week, which is due by Tuesday evening, 11:59, by the way, that you have not only watched this video, worked these things out with me before you've done your homework, get your homework in, read these chapters. It is a resource for you. Just because we're doing grammar this week does not mean that you can't go back to this when we are continuing to write and edit, because there's just so much information. For those of you who are in my 101 class, we really only have 1 week to give to this, so this is really going to be grammar on crack, because we're going to be doing a lot of information. For my 100 class, we are going to be really spacing this out and getting deeper into it to make sure that you're really confident and strong in these skills. But again, the information that I have provided for you guys in your modules this week is extremely important. So please make sure that you are reading it and using it while you are working through these problems and working through your homework this week. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump right on in. Now, classifying sentences, there's really 2 ways that people have been learned or have learned how to either diagram a sentence or classify a sentence. Diagramming, I personally, and I know if anybody other than my students watch this will probably attack me, but I personally think that diagramming is useless. Mainly because we speak incomplete phrases. I don't just, no one's going to try and figure out what the lines are and all that stuff. Classification is different because it's looking at the whole sentence, the way that it's written, and you're really walking through those logical pieces of the questions on how to find things to make sure that you have filled in some holes, because again, we're looking for complete communication. And so I just like it better because to me, I think it's more usable rather than diagramming. You will notice that I will go in the same order every time. And it's a formula for grammar. So for those who are math and science people, you should really find comfort in this because there is a logical order to go through this. And mainly so you don't leave anything out and to make sure, again, that you have covered all bases. Okay? So the first thing we have to talk about is a sentence. What's a sentence? A sentence has a subject, a verb, it should make sense, has a capital letter, punctuation mark. Those are really the 5 parts of a sentence. Now, this is the thing. I can take away and I can say, dog ran. Is that a complete sentence? Yeah, it is actually. It meets my checklist. Dog ran. It's a subject. It has a verb. All that good stuff. Does it make sense? Yeah, you can kind of visualize a dog running. Does it give you any in-depth? No, not really. So really, even though it's technically a sentence, and I do want you to hear what I'm saying. Just because something is technically correct doesn't mean it's quality. And with writing, we want quality. And that's what the parts of speech are. That it's to fill out the sentence so the reader is understanding everything that you're saying. You are taking them on a ride. You're the leader. And it is up to you to take them on that journey. And if you are leaving holes, if the reader ever is, questioning, I don't understand this. What are they talking about? If you've confused your reader, they don't understand what you're talking about. They have to reread something multiple times. You failed in that form of writing, unfortunately. You weren't successful because not many people are going to get too much farther into your writing if they're starting off confused. They're going to stop, which means all that work that you've done is for nothing. Nothing. So we want to make sure that not only are we making good sentences that flow easily into the next idea, that are logically ordered because we're logical people, but we want to be the person who is really educating our reader. And again, you cannot leave holes. Anytime that you are leaving a hole or where they're having to guess or assume, that is dangerous in communication because then you are allowing them to fill the gaps. And it may not be your intent. News. Somebody's not telling all the facts, they're leaving things out, then other people are filling it in and they're making assumptions, and that is dangerous. Never leave yourself open to someone questioning or adding to what you're trying to say or changing, which could down the road, it could actually change your message into something that really wasn't what you had intended. And that's a dangerous thing. So these are I know it's a lot of stuff to think about, but we do need to think about that as writers. We need to think about that if we are in a profession where we are having to write and communicate through the written format on a regular basis. You have to be very specific. And that's one of the things I like about academic writing. It's very, it's not super fluffy. You kind of get in, do your job, get out. So it's, to me, I like it. It's easier because I can tell people what I think and all that good stuff. Whereas with creative writing, you're having to create worlds and there's, I think, a lot more work in that. So it's cool and I appreciate it. Wish I could do it, but All right, so I've got some sentences on the board, and how I'm going to do this is what I want you to do is I want you to write them down on a sheet of paper, utilizing the resources that I've given you. I want you to work them out. So as soon as you write them down, and I'm going to read them out loud just to make sure that you have them, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to work them out utilizing your notes. Use a different color so it stands out from what the black or the pencil the black ink or blue ink or whatever that you've written, and make sure that it's something opposing so you can see. Be neat about it and make sure that your parts of speech are above it, okay? And follow the instructions that I've given you. All right, so sentence 1 is last night, the pretty little girl in the pink dress ran quickly down the road to her aunt's house. Number 2, wow, my teacher gave me a different assignment for my homework. Actually, I should probably put this as an exclamation point. And number 3, put down your pencil. Okay? So after you've written those down, and you can pause the video and write them down, I want you to pause it, and then we'll come back on. Okay, so I'm assuming you've paused and you did as I have suggested. And so we're going to go through them now. And I'm going to start with the questions, follow through. Now, you've already written these down. Take notes. If you missed something, all right, don't just correct it, but maybe make a note as to why it is what it is. Make your notes work for you, okay? That's so important in any class and anything that you're being taught. As professors, as teachers, we're trying to think of all these different things, but everybody learns differently, and sometimes they need, we need our own verbiage. We need our own stuff. So feel free to do that, but don't just put the right answers down. I would try to fill that out a little bit. And you do have the luxury with the video that when I say something, you can pause it. You're not going to miss any of the lecture. So that's really cool. So yay. All right. So the first thing is, last night, the pretty little girl in the pink dress ran quickly down the road to her aunt's house. The first thing that I do on any sentence is I have to find out what my sentence is about. What's the purpose? Oh, here's that word again, purpose. All right, so the purpose of my sentence is girl, and she is a subject noun. Why is she a subject noun? One, because she's specific, and it's a noun. It meets my criteria, person, place, or thing, but she's the subject of my sentence. Everything about this sentence is revolving back to her. If I said, if I started a sentence with she or we, that's a subject pronoun. And so, you do need to look at that. But in this instance, it's very specific, and so it is a subject noun. My next logical question will be, what did the girl do? The girl ran. And so that's my verb. Now, typically, when I am separating sentences out, and you're going to separate in between the subject, noun, and the verb. That's going to do your complete subject and your complete predicate. But we have some words in between, and so we have to figure out what that is. Okay? Because you need to figure out, does it go in the subject or does it go in the predicate? And the easiest thing is really, what does it describe? What does it describe? Okay? So in is a preposition. It's giving direction or it's spatial. Now, I am going to include this week a list of the most commonly used prepositions. However, it is not an all-inclusive list. There's tons of prepositions that are out there, okay? So the thing is, I always think about a cookie jar. I'm in the cookie jar, I'm around the cookie jar, I'm under the cookie jar. I've stood on desks and ran around, around the desk, beyond, with, to. Those are prepositions. They're giving me some direction, and they're spatial in regard to one thing, okay? And so I have a preposition here, but this is also the other thing. If I said, last night the pretty little girl in, what's the logical question that you're going to ask yourself? In what? If I just left it with a preposition, you've left your reader going, what are you talking about? And we can't have that. So the note here and the little takeaway here is, when you have a preposition, it is a part of a phrase. And if you have a preposition, you must have an object of the preposition. And how do we find it? We ask what. Okay? So I say in what, and it will be dress. That is my object of a preposition. Also, according to your book, I put my prepositional phrases in parentheses. And I do that purposely because sometimes you can have multiple preposition phrases, one right after the other, and it avoids confusion and mislabeling things. And the fact that you want to make sure that you've rounded things off. I know in writing, sometimes we get to the end of the sentence and there's a preposition there. The one that comes to mind to me is with. Sometimes it's like you end up with at the end of a sentence. And you're like, well, it doesn't really have a phrase. Well, right. So what I would say in that instance, one, just don't do it. Unless it's a command like turn the light on. That's an actual action of turning something on or off. Rephrase the sentence. Do not end a sentence with a preposition, mainly because you're looking for something to fill it out. And it's kind of like this cardinal rule, don't do it. So I would avoid it. Okay. All right. So I have my prepositional phrase, and we know that the is a part of article adjectives. There's only 3. So you memorize them. They play one job. It's one job. And it is an adjective, which means it will be describing a noun, the dress. Okay? So it's an article adjective. And then I have pink. What's its job? Well, I could say pink dress. The dress is pink, which means it's describing the dress. And if I am describing a noun, I'm an adjective. Adjectives got one job. Describe a noun or a noun job. Remember, nouns can wear different hats, okay? Or there's a lot of different jobs within the noun community. So if something is describing an object of a preposition, a subject, noun, direct object, indirect object, those words that are describing those things are going to be adjectives. So now I have to figure out, okay, well, where do I separate my sentence from my complete subject to complete predicate? In the pink dress, is it describing the girl or is it describing ran? Remember that in your subject noun is what's the main focus of the subject of a sentence. The verb is the main part of speech in the predicate. That's what determines the predicate. You will not have a main verb in the subject ever. It doesn't belong there. It's in the predicate. And that's why we separate those between the subject noun or subject pronoun and the verb. Okay? So in the dress, it's describing the girl. It doesn't describe ran. So we are going to keep that prepositional phrase with the subject. I'm going to underline my complete subject once and complete predicate twice. Now I'm getting it down into small workable pieces. Last night, I'm going to table that for a second and I'm going to come back to that, okay? So I'm going to go to the, okay. We've already talked about our article adjectives. It's on a list. It's got one job. I'm confident that it's an A. Pretty and little. What are they describing? Girl. All right, now check it out. When they're adjectives, you can hear it. They go together, okay? So like this, last night girl, that doesn't go together. Doesn't even sound right. Pretty girl, little girl, they don't go, those actually go. Audibly, they sound like they go, which means they're describing the girl, correct? So that's an adjective. All right, so then we go to ran. Now, there's a part of speech that describes a verb, and that's an adverb, okay? Now, if you look at your definition, an adverb modifies or describes a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. It asks who, when, where. Okay? Or how, when, where. Sorry about that. How, when, where from the verb. So if you say ran how, is there anything that answers that? Yeah, she ran quickly. That's an adverb. Little side note, it has an ly. Ly words typically are adverbs. Not all adverbs are ly, but that's kind of like a little check there. All right, so how did she run? She ran quickly. When did she run? When did she run? She ran last night, okay? But you cannot, each word has to have its own job. So night is my adverb that describes ran. When did she run? At night. All right. But last night is the example of an adverb modifying another adverb. So those are two adverbs. Do not just put adverb above two words unless it's hyphenated or if it's a name. Okay, so you would have to have adverb above both. Okay, down the road. Oh, and also because last night is describing my verb, I'm going to give that another line because that really does go with the predicate. Okay. All right, so now we're at down. Again, going by definition, that's a direction, right? If I just left it, ran quickly down, logically I'm going to go down what? Right? That's a preposition. And down what is road, which is my object of a preposition. Again, I'm going to round that out because I got other words. I need to make sure that I keep this to itself. The is an article adjective because we know because it's on the list. Excuse me. To is another preposition. To what? House. I'm going to round that out. Now we've got a couple other parts of speech here. Her is on a list. Your pronouns, there's a specific list of pronouns. Subject, objective, and possessive pronouns. They're all pronouns. Pronouns are not specific. And if you have a pronoun, you must have an antecedent. So when they're talking about her, who are they really talking about? The girl. Now that's just writing in general, because you have to be very specific. Again, you're taking your reader on a ride here, and you can't leave holes. It's just like if you have acronyms like FBI, you need to clarify your terms. Never assume that anyone knows anything. Now, once you clarify that term, then you can use that acronym for the rest of your paper. For the pronoun, especially if it's in the sentence, if you have the antecedent, you're good, because the reader can match it up, okay? And this is a personal pronoun adjective. Now, again, I was saying you have subjective pronouns. Subjective pronouns are typically in the subject. You can find them in the subject. I, we, she, she went to the store, I went to the store, they went to the store, you went to the store. Be very careful with that, because you need to make sure, is it really the subject? And if it's not being used in the subject of a sentence as the main subject of the sentence, where it would be a subject pronoun, it's going to be a PPA, okay? The next one is aunt's house. Now I can already read that out loud, and I can see there's some ownership going on there. Whose house? Her aunt's house. Now, the other piece is there's an apostrophe S. Possessive nouns have apostrophes. In fact, there's only 2 times that you use apostrophes in grammar: contractions and possession. Okay? And so if you're trying to use possession with the exception of its, because if you have IT apostrophe S, it's actually a contraction and you can't use it. So the possessive form of its is ITS without. So you need to know the difference. But everything else, you have to have an apostrophe. And so it's showing there's possession there. It's describing, so it's an adjective. And guess what? Aunt is a noun. This is an example of a possessive noun adjective. These two things are not the same thing. They have different purposes, because this one is referring back to the girl, and aunt's house, aunt is describing and showing ownership. Okay, so I hope that you were able to see that. And that is how we have classified our first sentence. The next one, wow, my teacher gave me a different assignment for my homework. I'm adding on 3 more parts of speech actually here. Okay. The one that's not up here is the conjunction. But that's okay. It is in your book. It will be in your homework. I will touch on it just in a second. All right, so wow, my teacher gave me a different assignment for my homework. Wow, is that really a part of speech? What is that? That's excitement. Interjection. Wow. Hey, anybody who's watched Schoolhouse Rock? Awesome. So this is what we call an interjection. They are not always with an exclamation point. Sometimes it can be a soft, exclamation kind of thing, but it's not always an exclamation point. All right, so that's an interjection. We're just going to keep that there. Now we're getting into the meat of our sentence. My teacher gave me a different assignment for my homework. Now we have my. Is this sentence about my, or is it about the teacher? It's about the teacher. It's specific. This is a subject noun. What did the teacher do? Gave. Okay. My is on my pronoun list. This is a personal pronoun adjective or a possessive pronoun adjective. Okay. Because there's some ownership there. It's on my pronoun list. It's not the subject of a sentence, okay? Gave. What did my teacher give? Now this is where we're going to learn a new one. What did my teacher give? She gave an assignment. This is a direct object, okay? Now, as soon as I have a direct object, I have to make this a verb transitive. So it's not just because there's more going on, because, and there's more meaning here. It's not just that action piece of it. All right, so gave what? Gave an assignment. To whom? Me. This is an indirect object. The direct object and the indirect object are both nouns. Okay? So, and these nouns are kind of describing that verb. Okay? Now, check it out. I can say, wow, my teacher gave a different assignment for my homework. I can have a direct object without an indirect object. But I cannot have an indirect object without the direct object, because you need this in order to find that. Okay? And remember, if you have a direct object in your sentence, you have to change this to a verb transitive. Okay? All right. So A, we know that that's on a list. That's an article adjective. Different. What is different doing? It is describing assignment. And we know that a direct object is underneath of my noun umbrella. And if I am describing a noun, I'm an adjective. Okay? I hope you understand that. Again, you have to have a direct object before the indirect object. And also, the indirect object will always come between the verb and the direct object. You'll never find the indirect object on to the right of a direct object. It will always be in between. So it's kind of like here, here, here. Okay? Indirect object is between the verb and the direct object. All right? For, looking at your list, you'll see that for is a preposition. For what? Homework. And we have my, and that's on a list. It's on your personal pronoun list. In fact, you already had my, so you can see that. Okay? So that gives a little bit clarification there. All right, now this last one is a little bit different. Put your pencil down. And I'm just curious how many people just actually put their pencil down. I do that every year, and everybody's like, oh. I'm just giving you a soft command. Now this is the kicker. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to you, and you knew I was talking to you. It's a soft command, and we do that all the time. Turn the light on. Okay? Now, you'll notice when I say put your pencil down, and this is what gets a lot of kids on this, that's why I'm going over this. Put, is that a noun? No, it is an action. It is a verb. So that is your first clue. Also, the fact that this is a command, which means in a command, it's usually understood who the audience is, which is your understood you. When you do the understood you have to write it, put it in parentheses. It is a subject pronoun, and that is where you separate it. You is your subject. Put down your pencil is your predicate. All right, so put, what's down? Down is a preposition. Down what? Pencil. Your is a possessive pronoun adjective. Okay, now a couple things. If I said, just doing conjunction so I just can round it out real quick. I just saw this, so I'm not going to claim this is a great sentence, but it'll get my point across. All right, so the cat ran and jumped on the chair. Okay, so this is what we call a conjunction, and there's more, and is probably the most commonly used conjunction. And what that means, it is you are combining two things. You're making them compound. So and it can be anything. It can be a compound subject. It can be a compound verb. It can be a compound direct object, compound indirect object. So if you're tying two things together, your first thing is what's the job? What's it tying together? But this one you are notating this a bit differently also. All right, so the cat, we know that this is about a cat, which is my subject noun. Okay, ran and jumped. There's two actions here. So the verb is here and here. And is my conjunction. And to show that this is a compound, you're going to call it a CV. So I know that you know that this is a compound verb, okay? Because these are my verbs, I'm going to separate it here. The is an article adjective. On the chair. Okay, so if I said the cat and dog, and I could have done that, it would be a compound subject noun. Conjunction, compound. So, I mean, you can put those anywhere. It is not listing, but if it is the and in between it and it is a compound situation, you need to make sure that you do that. I do want to make one little notation about the and a, or your article adjectives. You have a and the. And when do you use those? Okay. The is very specific. If I say go get the book, okay, that means go get the book off the table. You know that you are getting a specific book that's on that table. So it's very specific. A, if I say go get a book off the table, that means I could get a book off of any table. A and an are pretty much more general. Okay, and that's so if you're being very specific, if I say the girl, I'm talking about a specific girl. If I say a girl, it could be any girl. Okay, a and an work together, and the main thing with that is when you use a, it will precede a word that begins with a consonant, and precedes words that begin with a vowel or have that vowel sound. So if I say a cat, a is preceding a word with a consonant. But if I say apple, you would use an. An adjective. I wouldn't say a adjective, it's an adjective. Even though sometimes we speak fast and you're like, well, I didn't hear you say that. I'm saying an because adjective begins with a and it's that vowel sound. Okay, so make sure, because and I will do that purposely in editing paragraphs. So just be really mindful of that. Okay. This is going to conclude the parts of speech portion of the show. So please make sure that you are reading chapter 1 and completing that. I will be loading in another video that will be punctuation, and then we'll be doing homonyms and synonyms, and I'm going to be doing possessive noun adjectives and how to do that. Again, on 101, there's going to be a lot. So your quiz this week will have quite a few things, but again, we're probably at 30 minutes on this one, and I really want to keep these in small workable pieces. So, and also to be specific with homework, you can go right to the video that deals with it. So please make sure that you watch this and you read your information, make your notes work for you. And I'm looking forward to see you guys in class on Wednesday and Thursday. So have a great day.